So in today's class, so I think yesterday's class we have understood that there are various developments that happened in Europe which helped Europe to progress towards modern age. There are several such developments that resulted Europe to progress towards from medieval age to modern age. So there are few reasons left over in that reasons of Europe. That is the invention of printing press. See, printing press was invented by John Gutenberg of Germany. See, this printing press has a greater change in the scientific advancement of European society. Because of the invention of printing press, so in the middle of 15th century in Europe, it has made possible to produce more books in large numbers. So earlier to printing press, there were handwritten copies of books. So which used to take a lot of time, which consumes a lot of time, and it was a very manual process. I know many people used to need to involve in that things. So, but once this printing press was invented. So once printing press got invented, it had made possible to produce a large number of books in a short span of time. So when did it happen? In the middle of the 15th century. So what is the major reason? What is the other major invention that helped Europe to progress towards modern age? Invention of printing press. So this printing press, what was the use of this? This enabled Europe to put these books within the reach of large number of people, and printing and distribution of books influenced people's attitude towards life and brought about a new awakening in Europe. So here, see, when printing press was invented, what happened? They could produce large number of books. Once large number of books are available, it came to the reach of large number of people. Earlier, very few people could read and those books. So the Greek and Roman scholars, they wrote many such books. Many scientific discoveries and all were, they were written in book forms. And all these books were not known to Europeans because they could not distribute to them and make them read. One, but once the printing press was invented, it became very easy to for the scholars to publish or to distribute their books to all the people throughout the Europe. So once this kind of advanced scientific books came to people, they started influencing people's mindset. So, so for example, you take, earlier, Aristotle and other great scholars, they said that, see, the earth revolves around the sun. But the traditional people, the superstitious people, they believed that no, it was the sun which is revolving around the earth. So they never believed these scholars. But these scholars, with proofs, when they have published these books, and because of printing press, when these books reached all major people, they started understanding the concepts of science and they understood the true wisdom. And when the people understood the true wisdom of these scholars, their attitude towards life brought a big change. People started looking their lives in a very different manner. And this helped in the new awakening in Europe. So definitely when people understand it in a very, when people understand the scientific things through these books, their attitude towards life will change and definitely they progress in a different aspects. So that is called new awakening of Europe. And the revival of old learning led to the development of new thought. So that's what I was saying. So when people like Aristotle, Socrates, Copernicus, and all these people, they have revived the ancient learning. See what was happening to these people when Greeks and Romans were ruling. The Romans, who were polytheists, worship many gods, having a lot of beliefs and all, they never allowed these scholars to speak scientifically and rationally. Once this transformation phase has started, when Western world came into contact with Eastern world, the Greeks and Romans, they have revived their great knowledge. Understood? So in the process of revival of their old knowledge, they have led to the development of new thought process. New learnings were introduced. New culture got introduced, and this was called Renaissance. Rebirth of total society happened because of these scholars. So these scholars created a lot of awareness among people with their books. So these books and other things really helped people to develop a new thought process, new learning start, people started learning new things, and culture also got changed. So it further improved. So which was called Renaissance. So other reason was Renaissance was a major development. One reason was the invention of printing press. Second thing was Renaissance. So what were the developments in India in those days? That we will see now. See, what are the developments of India at the end of medieval age? So as I told you, during the medieval age, India had a lot of Mughal rule and Muslim rule. Especially Muslim rule was dominating in India. So especially Mughals were ruling. And there are certain developments which occurred with the Mughals. So these developments in India led to the rise of modern ages in India. What were those developments? The major developments of so the major developments in India during the period of transition were the following. So these are the following developments. The decline of Mughal Empire led to number of regional kingdoms. So what happened? The Mughal Empire got declined. Mughals were the major rulers of India during medieval age, and these emperors became weak and the rule became declined. That means after Aurangzeb, the rulers who came up, they were naturally weak. They were not as powerful as the earlier rulers. So when the ruler became weak, naturally the kingdoms which were under the control of that emperor also got separated, became independent. For example, you take Mughal Empire. This Mughal Empire was controlling some 1,000 kingdoms, and all the 1,000 kings were very loyal to emperor. Now, when this emperor is weak, these kings who are under the emperor, they started declaring independence to themselves, and they became independent kingdoms, regional kingdoms. They were no longer associated with the empire, so they became independent kings. So that was the another important point. So the first development that was happening in India was Mughal Empire got declined and all the kingdoms in India got split into small kingdoms. So next point is the defeat of Marathas in the third battle of Panipat by the Afghans. So what was this? See, after the decline of Mughal Empire, Marathas emerged as a North Indian powers. So in the northern part of India, major kingdoms were controlled by Marathas. Marathas emerged so powerful that they could control major portion of North India after the Mughals. And these Marathas, they happened to face a fierce battle, which is called Third Battle of Panipat, with the Afghans. So with Afghan ruler, you know, there were many battles like Panipat battles, but in that third battle of Panipat, Marathas, who were the North Indian powers after Mughals, they did a fierce battle, and in that battle, the Marathas lost the war, and as they lost the war, they could no longer keep or establish an all India empire. So it was Mughals who kept all the India united. After that, Marathas emerged powerful, and when they lost the war to Afghans in Third Battle of Panipat, see Panipat is a place near Delhi, okay, 60 kilometers away to Delhi in the north side. So when they lost the battle with Afghans, the Marathas lost control over India. They were no longer able to unify India. So another major development happening in India was the defeat of Marathas. One was decline of Mughals and disintegration into small kingdoms. Second thing was defeat of Marathas. And Third development that was happening was the conquest of India by British and turning India into a colony of British. So, so what happened? The third major development in India, conquest of British. As politically India became unstable, one hand Mughals completely declined, on the other hand Marathas lost the war. Now India situation became very weak and all the kings were having, they got separated and they were disintegrated and they were fighting among each other. During such situation, Britishers who came as traders, okay, you can see that in the picture here, the Britishers who came as traders in the form of, you know, East India Company, okay, this East India Company is a private trading company in Britain. So they took permission of the British government and they came to India for doing business. And this East India Company, when they came to India, they could easily take the advantage of the situations in India. As I said, Marathas became weak, Mughal Empire also became weak. So the decline of Mughal Empire as well as the the defeat of Marathas made East India Company to take advantage and made India as a colony of British. So it has made India as a colony of the Britishers. This company, which is a trading company, turned into a political political company, and it started ruling our country as its own colony. And this was the one reason. Third reason, the British conquest and turning India into a colony. And the fourth reason was, so these are also very important, the British policies in India which impacted its culture, economy, society, and overall development. So here what happened was the Britishers, when they started ruling India through East India Company, they implemented many policies. Okay, so these policies are for their looting the wealth. So the East India Company's aim was to loot the wealth of India and take away all the wealth to England and develop their country there. So because of that, they know to loot the wealth India, they had framed different policies. You take the taxation policy, you take how to how to affect all the sections of India. The culture got they involved in the cultural affairs of Indians. Economy was completely spoiled. India, which was once a very rich and wealthy nation, was turned slowly into a very poor nation. In society, they took advantage and they started creating gaps between Hindus, Muslims. This kind of policies were started by these Britishers, and even the overall development was also seen a great impact. This was a major development. The Britishers who came as traders turned into politicians and are the masters of India. And with their policies, what they have done, they have turned, they have influenced and affected every section of this country. You take culture, they have interfered and they have spoiled it. You take economy, they have interfered. You take society, they have interfered and they were responsible for many changes. And overall developments were also seen because of the British policies. And coming to the sources. Sources are, why do you require a source? See, we say that yes, these all developments happened in India for modern age. How do you know this? How historians know that this kind of things happen? How do the historians know? So the historians depend on certain information, certain evidences. They are called sources. And there are, by depending on these sources, the historians, what they will do, they will try to reconstruct the history. of India during the modern period. So India's modern period began with the British rule. Understood? End of Mughal and beginning of British rule was the modern period of India. And among the wide variety of sources available, historians took certain sources and they have reconstructed the modern period of India. So yes, this event happened after this, and these all things how we know, because using different sources, and the historians do this kind of things. And the first things that come are primary sources, and these are the sources that provide direct or first-hand evidence about an event. So see, primary sources. What are these primary sources? These are the first-hand information available. Okay, no need for them to discover something new. They're already available, they're readily available, and the historians have to look at them and understand them and interpret them. That's all they have to do. So they are called primary sources. First things they can look at. So what are primary sources? Okay, so these primary sources can be understood in like official records. There were many records, maintained by Britishers. You take trade, the papers of government agencies. Okay, so the papers of government agencies at different levels, and the records put down by the East India Company give a detailed account of trading conditions. See, there were many official records maintained by the British government. During the trade, you take East India Company, they have maintained certain records of the trade because they are trading company and they have to report to the British Parliament. They always maintain certain records for the trade they do. So that was all that served as a very important. So in the official record, the trading details at different levels of government were maintained. And the second thing was, these records also give details about all levels of administration. So by these records, we can understand even the kind of administration that Britishers were doing in those days. So in the official records, firstly, we will come to know about the trade details. Second thing, we'll come to know about the administrative records. And see, the British Crown, when it took over the reins of administration, also kept a large number of official records. See, what happened was, the British Crown, when it took over the reins of administration, also kept a large number of official records. When East India Company was ruling, so originally the East India Company was the ruler. So later what happened? This East India Company, it resulted in a big revolt because of the nature of the ruling of this company. It has resulted in a big revolt. And looking at this revolt, the British Parliament felt very disturbed, and what they did, they took control. Now, the British Parliament took control of the affairs of India. That is nothing but the British Crown. So the British Crown directly took the control of affairs of India. And when they took control of Indian affairs, they also maintained certain records. For example, if you want me to say, there was a Queen's proclamation. Okay, it was an official record. They proclaimed even Queen of England as the Empress of India. So all such records come under official records, and they were still maintained, and those all records served as a primary evidence for historians to reconstruct the past of India, or you take the modern age of India, or you can call the transformation of India from medieval age to modern age. Then comes the records of European companies like those of Portuguese, Dutch, and French. See, to India, not only this England, I mean the European, many European peoples came. In fact, the Portuguese, Dutch, and French were the I mean, they were the pioneers. They were the first people to come and do trade with India. Britishers were last to come, but the Britishers could sustain their power politically and through their military wise, and they could become the masters of India. So, among the official records, the government papers served as evidence, and the records of European members, other European companies like Dutch East India Company came, Portuguese came for trade. They also maintained certain records about the Indian happenings of that time, their trade, their administrative style. They also maintained certain things. All those also served as evidence for historians to reconstruct the past. And they are important primarily from the point of view of economic history. So what happened? These records served as to know the economical history of India. So economically, how India was earlier before these Europeans' arrival, how it got transformed, all such details, it was a clear-cut understanding for historians. So official records and the records of European companies, other companies like Portuguese, Dutch, French, also served in reconstructing the past. So not only this economical history of India, that means how economically India was progressing, it also gave information about the political setup in India at that time. So politically, how India was functioning at that time can also be understood through these records. And contemporary literary works such as memoirs, biographies, travel accounts. So, so there are contemporary literary works. So apart from these, trading companies or the ruling play people, some scholars who visited India, there were some travelers who visited India during those days, and these travelers documented a lot of information, certain memoirs. Memoirs means the books written by the rulers in those days, say the kings and all, they have the habit of recording their family history and all. So all these works have helped historians to reconstruct the transition phase, especially how this transition phase happened from medieval to modern. It was very helpful for historians. And newspapers and periodicals in English and Indian languages. So during those days, certain Indians, they also ran certain newspapers. So in bringing certain issues to notice of the British, some educated group of Indians, they have started newspapers. I know some periodicals, like, occasionally they publish some kind of, magazines and all. Through these things, they, like they have documented the information. All such things also served as a very important source of information. And paintings, drawings, sketches, and engravings of the period. So even you take today, the architecture of Britishers, the Mughals, you take, the Red Fort, the many kind of architectural grandeur that they have did in India, or you take Britishers, their fort style of constructions. You take, the kind of buildings they constructed, the sketches they made, the drawings, the paintings, everything. It served as a, see, these paintings, drawings, and engravings means on the walls and all, no printings and kind of thing. This all is reflecting the culture of that things, right? If you look at the painting, if you look at the architecture of the people, what they have done, it tells us how the culture has been transforming, isn't it? So that is one thing. The photographs, films, and audio and videotapes of events and interviews of famous personalities. So, there might be some people who lived after independence. I know they were involved in the, they might be living during the, during the times of a British rule. These people were all, they were all taken their interviews. Their interviews were documented in the form of films, audios, and videos, and they all served as a very important source. And archaeological sources like buildings, monuments, and artifacts. So how the culture was transforming, how the building style of construction was changing. You take, the Parliament building of modern day India. It was designed by Britishers. See, that was a kind of architectural proof that we came to know. Yes, this is the kind of thing, this is the style, this is the kind of paintings that they adapt, right? They all serve as a good evidence to understand the situations or the developments of those days. This all come under primary source. Then coming to the secondary sources. So these are the sources produced by using primary sources. So whereas the primary sources provide first-hand information, the secondary sources involve generalization, analysis, and interpretation of the original information. So what happens was, see, primary sources, you can directly look at them. The records you can look, the records of European companies you can look directly, the literary works you can look, the newspapers can be even stored and preserved, paintings and all, they will not go anywhere, still they are available. You can see archaeological remains like buildings are still remaining. This you can see. But how come these secondary sources can be used? See, these are the sources produced by using primary sources. So once these primary sources are understood, from this they try to establish another interpretation. They serve as evidences again. They are called secondary evidences. So they include historical works written by contemporary historians. So see, there might be many things happening in India, and there might be some newspapers, there might be some kind of documents available. By looking at the documents, what a historian does, he writes a book, and referring to such historian's book also gives a certain kind of information. Oh yes, this might be the situation in those days and all. And those, see, a historian will depend on primary source and he will write his own interpretation in his book. That book will serve as a secondary source. Understood? And the socio-economic details given at the literary works such as novels, plays, poems, and short stories written by British and Indian authors of this period. So here the historical works written by contemporary historians based on the primary sources also serve as secondary source, and the socio-economic details, that means the society and how economy was operated, all these things were also like documented through plays, short stories and all. Some British might have written all those things, so they all served as a very important source of information for understanding the developments in India to transform from medieval age to modern age. So this renaissance we will discuss in the next class. So this is about today's class.